BMW M or Mercedes AMG? That is a decades-long, multi-generational question that continues to today. If you're looking for a super powerful and fast, luxurious daily driver, you're probably going to be looking at one of the German manufacturers, and we've got two options here today. This one is a 2023 Mercedes E63S AMG, and this one is a 2025 BMW M5 Touring. Now, they may only be 2 model years apart, but they are from completely different generations. This E63 served as the final send-off for the gasoline-only twin-turbo V8 powered super sedan from Mercedes. This M5 Touring is from the new generation, which is now a plug-in hybrid. So this one came with a bit of controversy, namely weight. Now this one here is the touring body style. The new M5 is finally here as a wagon, and we rejoiced. But then we saw the curb weight and we were all like, excuse me, because this thing is the better part of 5,500 pounds. Now, the E63 of this generation was also available in wagon form. I obviously don't have a wagon here today, but compared to the new M5, this is a lightweight at like 4,500 pounds. So there's essentially a 1,000 pound difference between these two options. And it's also going to be really interesting to see the comparison between different eras of these German super sedans, because Mercedes has not given us a new E63 quite yet. They're getting closer and closer. From what I recall hearing the rumors, I think they were considering downsizing, hybridizing, losing the V8, going to a boosted inline-6 with a hybrid system. But that kind of similar downsizing formula for the C63 platform was not very well received. It was not very popular, and I think they're backtracking. I think they want to give us a V8 again, but there's been a delay. So this generation of E63 is gone. We've got the M5 now coming here with the twin-turbo plug-in hybrid, but no new E-Class full-out AMG. This new M5 Touring still has a twin-turbo V8, making healthy amounts of power, so you get that V8 rumble and sound, but it now has a plug-in hybrid system, which brings some pros and cons. The pros, you get a lot of extra power and torque, you get some pure EV driving range as a plug-in hybrid, and theoretically you can get slightly better fuel economy. We'll talk about that more when we're on the road. But the downside is going to be weight, because you have a decent sized battery pack, so this thing has gotten a lot heavier, even though it has a lot more power. 717 horsepower and 738 pound-feet of torque. When you first hear those numbers, you're like, what in the world? This thing is underpowered in comparison. This is only 603 horsepower and 627 pound-feet of torque. These are all astronomical figures. These are supercar power numbers in family sedans that have luxury, tech, all of it, right? But now both of these here, as they've evolved, they've really stepped away from the old generation, right? I think back to like the E39 M5, the ethos of a BMW M sedan, and the driver engagement and handling and all of those feelings, that's long gone. These are just super rocket ship luxury daily driver options now. And we're not on a racetrack. We're not on some crazy curvy canyon back road. So today we're gonna drive both of these in the real world, in the suburbs of Michigan, and see what they're like as daily drivers, share some thoughts on how they compare. So let's go for a drive and talk about some really powerful and fast German sedans. We start off in the E63 AMG, which might be a generation old, but that does not mean it's outdated at all. In some ways, I actually prefer this era of interior. You have enough of the new tech creature comforts, but there's still actual like physical controls. Some of the new stuff is going just too advanced and too many screens and too digital feeling. It works in some applications, but in a car like this, I still want a little bit of that classy luxury paired with that sportiness. And sportiness is definitely plentiful here. We've got lots of carbon fiber trim all over the interior, AMG badge, and some nice yellow stitching everywhere. And I mean, the material build quality is extremely nice, as you would expect in a top-tier Mercedes AMG model. We've got the upgraded Burmester sound system with the metal speaker grills. The seats are very comfortable, and I love the active bolsters. They hug you when you go through turns. And then we have the modern AMG touches, like the little shortcut, little spinny dials here. I can go up into sport mode, open my exhaust. It's got all, I mean, honestly, this feels essentially brand new, even though it is technically the outgoing previous generation E63. Now let's talk about the powertrain. So this has no hybridization at all, even mild hybrid system, none of that, no 48 volt, just twin turbo V8. And it's a very healthy twin turbo V8, 603 horsepower, 627 pound-feet of torque, sent to all the wheels with 4MATIC Plus, and it also has that variable torque split. You can have a drift mode. We have the 9-speed MCT multi-clutch transmission, which in these AMG applications gives you really, really quick, snappy shifts. It's got adaptive air suspension, dampers. It's got pretty much anything you would want to make a bigger, heavier luxury sedan handle and keep up with essentially all the sports cars out there, even something like active engine mounts, right? So it's got all the tech that AMG engineers could throw at a car like this. And when I drove this when it was new, I was like, wow, this is really the pinnacle. I really, really like this outgoing E63 AMG, and it made me feel a little bit sad because we weren't sure what the next era was going to be. At that time, the belief was downsize, hybridization, and we're like, that's gonna get heavier, it's not gonna have the same rumble. When I think Mercedes AMG, I think V8 rumble, all from the previous E63s, E55s, C63s, like that's what I expect. Which this still absolutely delivers. Listen to those downshifts. That is very, very quick shifting. And the dynamics of this thing definitely stray more towards sport than luxury. That's typically the formula when you're in something like this, but it feels a lot more alive and nimble compared to the M5 Touring. A little bit of context, I've been driving the M5 Touring this week, but I also spent the entire weekend in a 992.2 Carrera 911. So I hopped out of the 911 into the M5 Touring and immediately was like, wait, is this the BMW M5 or did I accidentally get into an X5M? It felt gigantic. Now this kind of is a little bit smaller feeling right now. And yes, of course, this was available as a wagon. I don't have the wagon right now. I just grabbed my friend Mobeen's E63 sedan, at least to do this comparison. Naturally, you'd want to have the wagon version, the M5 Touring, and then an RS6 Avant as the true head-to-head competitor. But these are the cars that I wanted to compare, more so because it's like the previous generation versus the new version. Because this generation of M5 was simply a twin turbo V8. The M5 CS, the F90 M5 CS, oh, that is a fabulous sedan. I absolutely loved it. And I had a really tough time picking between this E63S or the M5 CS. M5 CS, way more hardcore, not that comfortable with the carbon buckets, really firm suspension, but it was a ballistic monster. This definitely was more livable, better daily driver. But now compared to the new generation, yeah, it doesn't have the plug-in hybrid, low-end torque like leaving, doesn't have electric mode and things like that. But this is a more pure driving experience for sure. Oh, jeez. Yeah, that's a no hesitation, no lag, just go. Go, go, go. Man, the thing is, on paper, this is, I think, technically faster than the M5 Touring because it may make so much more power, but it's so much more heavy. And this formula just feels more pure and engaging, which is crazy to think because I remember an era when if anything was boosted, we're like, oh, no more naturally aspirated. See, there's a 488. You would rather have a 458 because it's more engaging, right? But turbocharger technology, forced induction, has gotten to the point where like the response is instant. You don't have any trade-offs. There's no negative downside of having a boosted V8. Yeah, that'll get you in trouble real quick. That is plenty fast. You get that nice V8 sound. You feel like it's a little bit more engaging. I really like this E63S. I don't know what they're gonna do with the new generation. I remember loving this when I first drove it, and then there was a little bit of sadness with like, well, this is the end. They had the final edition. No more V8 powered E63. They're gonna go to an inline 6 hybrid. It's gonna lose its soul. And we were sad. And you're like, everybody go buy an E63 before they all go away. Now we don't know. It sounds like they might be backtracking a little bit, giving us a V8, but it's almost guaranteed to have some sort of hybridization. So this will still remain kind of the pure end of the era. Quickly, we'll talk about the values of these things. Brand new, they started like 112, right around below 115, but this one was heavily optional with the carbon ceramic brakes, paint, like all these different options of upgraded sound system. So this one was about 145, which is actually higher than the M5 Touring I'm driving right now. That M5 Touring is optioned to $140,000, but this generation E63, these final years, this like facelift update one, they are so rare. They didn't build many. The first model year got stunted. They couldn't produce them. There was the era, remember, chip shortage and all those things, and we thought maybe V8s are going away. G63 stopped it for a moment and values skyrocketed, and like, never mind, G-Wagon still has a V8. But there are very, very few of these out there, and they've held prices pretty much close to MSRP, which is a rarity because typically these kinds of high-end German sedans depreciate pretty heavily. I bought my 2016 RS7 when it was 2 or 3 years old, certified pre-owned, and it went from 130 to like 75. So it was almost $55,000, $60,000 off. And that's the typical depreciation curve. But these things did not follow that. I expect the new M5 Touring to follow that. The values of these are going to depend on what Mercedes does for the next generation. But no matter what, these facelift cars are going to remain very, very rare, very hard to find, especially if it's in a wagon form or a really high spec final edition, a matte finish paint, things like that, right? They can't build anymore. They're just not going to. They've moved on. Let's take a look at the design of the E63. This one has the matte finish, which definitely looks really cool, along with all the blacked out accents and the AMG specific front grille with those vertical slats. This is also a facelift model, the mid-cycle refresh. So they changed the design of the headlights, taillights, and other tweaks to the fascia. We have the 20-inch blacked out split spoke AMG wheels, along with carbon ceramic brakes and that copper accent on the calipers. On the fender, we have a V8 bi-turbo 4MATIC Plus badge and some carbon accents like on the side view mirrors. Now, obviously, this one is the sedan body style. There was a wagon available for this generation of E63, which would be the more direct comparison to the M5 Touring, but I just had a sedan available to me this week. Now, around back, we've got some more carbon accents, a lip here on the rear trunk, E63S badge, and the trapezoidal AMG quad exhaust tips. I think this generation is aging very nicely. It still looks really aggressive, nice and sporty, but also at the same time a little bit more classy looking. And this one here with the matte finish and everything blacked out definitely is pretty cool. It's also worth mentioning the Audi platform options. We don't have one of those today, but the C8 generation RS6 Avant and RS7 are the current offerings, and they came out around this time too. Now, like I mentioned, I had a C7.5 RS7, but I didn't fall in love with the new generation RS7, RS6. I really wanted to because Avant, wagon, we can have a wagon, right? It was so much bigger and heavier. I didn't love that aspect of it. It just became more of like a wafty land yacht rocket ship. And my personal opinion was like, I would rather have my cars dedicated to their purpose. If I want ultra luxury, I bought an A8L. If I want really sporty, I had an R8. So I'm a big Audi fan, right? I've had multiple different flavors of the Audi models, R8, A8L versus just an RS7. Anyways, those are a couple little thoughts on the RS7. When you stack that up compared to this generation E63 and the M5, I thought the M5 and the E63S were definitely much more dynamic. They handled better. The RS7, R6 were great daily drivers, like floaty, wafty, really, really powerful and fast. But it also freaked me out that it came on 22-inch wheels. Like, what? That's enormous, right? I actually downsized my RS7 from 21s to 20s. Pretty sure this is on 20-inch wheels too, and they look fine, right? Wheels are just getting so massive on these big, big sedans. And the RS6, RS7, those were essentially close to 5,000-pound curb weight too, so multiple hundreds of pounds heavier than this E63. Now, that will probably be a closer comparison to the M5 Touring, even though it's not a plug-in hybrid. But as you can tell, weight inflation on these German sedans is a problem. With that, let's go swap into the M5 Touring and share some thoughts on what that thing feels like. Now we find ourselves in the new M5 Touring. So I've spent a week living with the regular sedan version of the M5. This week we have the wagon version, which powertrain-wise, layout, everything is going to be the same. It's just the body style change, and you do get just a tiny bit more weight. So I am already familiar with this platform and the complexities that come with it. I have my setup page pulled up here, and you can see how many different things you can vary. Drivetrain can be Comfort Sport, Sport Plus, Energy Recovery, that's your like regen braking, min, max, Drive Logic, chassis, steering, brake feel, your X-Drive, your all-wheel drive system, your exhaust sound. There is so much that you can vary. Imagine a number of combinations. It's nearly 2,000 possible different combinations of drivetrain settings. Luckily, they have the M1, M2 options, so you can configure those and just quickly go to them by pressing the button on the steering wheel. But then there's even more complexity, right? We can go the M hybrid system here between dynamic plus dynamic hybrid electric e-control. E-control kind of prioritizes like charging up, engine just kicked on when I went into that, or I can just go to dynamic. There's so many different options. Just learning to set up your M5 will take some time. There's also M mode here, road, sport, track, right? Options here, change the cluster. Customization is seemingly endless in the new M5. A lot of new cars are going to this where there's just so many different things that you can vary in terms of your settings. And ideally, if you own the car, set it up once and you're happy, you can pick what you want. I mean, choice is certainly plentiful. Now, these are both still twin turbo V8 powered, all-wheel drive, sedan, wagon, platform vehicles, but they have a rather different personality. The M5 Touring is definitely much more numb and isolated. That's without a doubt. I learned to like this generation not as the M5 we're traditionally used to, the more dynamic, engaging sports sedan. Like one of my favorite M5 generations is the E39 M5. The previous gen M5 CS is also fabulous. And of course the E60 generation, the V10 is special, right? But what we have now is more akin to the 7 Series. It is a bank vault of power and torque. Even just normal around town driving, the power is absolutely relentless. But everything has just become numbed. The steering, it just doesn't have the same feedback. You can definitely feel the size and weight. I kind of feel like I'm driving with a giant backpack on with the Touring. Looking out the mirror is really the big thing you also can notice, but you kind of just feel the general girth and just the enormous size of this vehicle. It is absolutely noticeable. And what they've done to still make it perform is impressive, right? Because you can only go so far defying the laws of physics. What I'm trying to differentiate is the feeling and the absolute capabilities, the specs. The acceleration, the ability to grip the road, turning, all of those things are still going to be tremendously impressive. You cannot discount that. On paper, it's technically slower than the previous gen, but once you're rolling, holy crap, it's a freight train. Overcoming that initial inertia, 0 to 60, did get slower because of that added weight, but once you're moving, this thing is relentless deep into illegal speeds. But the feeling is just a little more numb, and it does not give you that responsive feedback that I used to love about this kind of car. That's not to say it's not a really good daily driver. It doesn't have an air suspension. We have adaptive dampers. No fancy air suspension like in the E63, but it still is fairly comfortable. Ride quality is good. And practicality is also going to obviously be a big plus here. If you have the E63 wagon, even so, I think the M5 Touring might be a little more spacious just because it's grown so much in dimension. Now, some of the really cool things that I do like about the new M5, the interior is pretty cool. I like the light bar. It can be a little gimmicky, right? And some people might not love it, but I thought the animation was cool. Here in the M mode, it's got the M colors. At night, it's got this like crystalline effect to it. It's got pretty much every single tech luxury feature we want, short of massage seats. No massage seats here, but heated, cooled seats, of course. All of that. It's got the Bowers & Wilkins sound system, which is pretty good. The latest iDrive system has very, very nice graphics, but it is also rather complex. Complexity is kind of the name of the game here. But when you're driving it, it's just power and torque. when you're rolling in a straight line, it's fine. It is rather hilarious. This one has the boost option on that left pedal. If I pull this down, it gives me this temporary, holy crap, of boost. Oh geez, yeah, that it's really quick. I can promise you the M5 is like giggle-inducing fast in a straight line. But let's get to some of the downsides of the hybrid system. You get about 25 miles of all-electric range, which if you're plugging in at home is doable. Maybe your commute is 25 miles or less. Maybe it's 30 miles. You could get fantastic fuel economy. And the reason why a lot of these OEMs are going to these plug-in hybrid systems is sometimes you live in a city center. There's regions now, markets, where you're not allowed to drive an internal combustion engine through like central London. So they have to have some amount of electric range, which is affecting everything from regular consumer cars to enthusiast sedans like this to supercars. Look at Lamborghini, Ferrari, they're all hybridizing with tiny batteries for usable range. Now, one thing with this M5 Touring is when the battery depletes, and it will, I'm down to 4 miles to empty, but I've run it down to 0 before and I haven't plugged it in. Then you're just lugging around the entire hybrid system and the battery, and that's very, very heavy. And then you get horrendous fuel economy because it's just all that extra weight with the twin turbo V8. That's all it's doing, right? I think it's like 13 mpg combined or something. You still pay the gas guzzler tax on this thing, which I find extremely ironic. We have gone to a plug-in hybrid, but you still pay the gas guzzler tax, right? So like it's not necessarily hybridization for efficiency. They did up the power, and it's just these weird trade-offs of compromises. And I learned to like it, but not absolutely love it. That's kind of my feelings with this. The ZF 8-speed transmission is good, right? It's good in pretty much all the applications, but coming out of the E63, that MCT is definitely snappier. And in comparison, that E63 feels more close to an M3 in size than the M5. So it's definitely stepped up. Right, the M5 Touring. Obviously, the big news is the body style. We finally have the wagon available here in North America. This one is finished in a paint called Marina Bay Blue Metallic, and overall the M5 is absolutely a very aggressive looking vehicle. Wider than the regular 5 Series, the front fascia is way more aggressive. I actually think right here, they look like the cheeks on a chipmunk that has stuffed its cheeks full of nuts in preparation for hibernation. But it's got this just really, really angry looking face. You have that thin line of light illumination around the kidney grills, which are still, thankfully, relatively normal sized, unlike the M3 and M4. But there is lots of openings for airflow and cooling, a really aggressive front fascia here. They've also evolved. The headlight DRL design is no longer even like a hexagon or a circle. It's just this like angled slash there. So quite an aggressive looking front end. And of course, the body style is the highlight, the long roof, the wagon form. We have staggered wheels. They are 20-inch up front, 21-inch in the back. We've got carbon ceramic brakes with the gold calipers here. Interesting wheel design too. They do look like they'll be a little bit of a pain in the butt to clean, but it's definitely visually quite interesting. And then other M touches like the wing mirrors there. And you can see how the fenders flare out, but it's not like a smooth transition. It looks like the door maybe is the same, but this angles out a bit more. We have the flush door handles, and then coming around back, the long roof. You have a little bit of an interesting looking roof spoiler, a windshield wiper on the rear, the M5 badge there, and a pretty aggressive rear diffuser that really cuts up into the rear bumper, that lower area with the quad outboard circular exhaust tips. So there's the new M5 Touring. Just so cool to finally get the wagon form of the legendary M5. It just happened to have come in, it's put on a couple pounds, right? Visually, there's definitely a lot of presence. It definitely looks properly aggressive. And yeah, it's turned some heads this week too. I imagine if it was a crazier BMW individual paint to get even more attention. One of my takeaways is we got the wagons a little late. The previous generation RS6 Avant, I think I would have liked more than the current RS6. Imagine previous M5 Tourings. Now, by the time we're getting the wagon formula here in the North American market, they've grown, right? The modern day RS6 is big. The modern day M5 Touring is big. Honestly, what I think I would personally really love is the M3 Touring, the current M3 wagon, or the RS4 Avant, which we're not getting the smaller one here. The automakers decided that if we're gonna do the wagon, it has to be the big, most expensive, more flagship, powerful, and therefore heavy options, which is a little bit of a bummer. Jeez, yeah, okay. I mean, it's stupid powerful. It's stupid fast. And to be honest, most of the owners of M5s, M5 Tourings, E63 AMGs, RS6s, RS7s, Panameras, they're using them as their daily drivers. When you can afford a car like this, most of the people I know who are buying these brand new have a sports car in the garage. It doesn't matter what kind of sports car, they have something that's a little bit more nimble. Maybe they have an M2, maybe they have a Ferrari, maybe they have a Porsche GT3, they have something. So they're a bit more okay with just having a stupidly powerful, filled with technology rocket ship. And I think that's what the OEMs are just starting to kind of gravitate towards with this formula. And ultimately, it's the enthusiasts that are maybe decrying that, and myself, I'm guilty of that too, because people are still buying these things, right? In terms of the pricing, this one here is $140,000 as option. You could raise it a little bit more with like BMW individual paint, but it's got the carbon ceramic brakes just like that E63. That E63 was $145,000 when new, which is a pretty highly optioned one. The final editions were also around that price point, so you can spec these things pretty high, but around 130 to 150 grand is how much something like this costs now. I expect the M5s to depreciate like normal because this is the regular one. If they follow the formula, we'll get an M5 competition and maybe an M5 CS, although I don't know what the CS formula is going to look like in a car like this. Could I wish they could ditch the battery system and just do pure twin turbo V8, maybe more lightweight track version. That's what CS is supposed to kind of stand for now. I doubt that would happen because of the complexity of integration, but we'll see. So technically this is the regular entry-level M5 that we're getting. I expect at least a competition. So prices will probably climb, performance will get a little bit more sharpened. We'll see where they go with that, but this has been really cool. Going back to back, driving a previous generation E63, still just a pure twin turbo V8, and then hopping in what the future of these platforms is currently looking like. I have no idea what the next generation E63 is going to be officially. I am speculating it's going to be still a twin turbo V8 because I think we saw CLE testing and everybody's like, oh, it's still got a V8 in it, but almost guaranteed it will be a hybrid. So hopefully the curb weight doesn't climb too much. But one final point on the weight, this thing got so much grief about the curb weight. Panamera Sport Turismo Turbo SE Hybrid, whatever the long name for that thing is, similar curb weight. It's a little bit faster than this thing, given the curb weight and the similar power level. Porsche horsepower is just slightly different, but that's really heavy too. Hopefully the E63 doesn't quite match this, but you know, they oftentimes just benchmark each other and then they just follow in this similar direction. But we'll see where it goes. What do you guys think about the M5 Touring, or would you go for a previous gen E63? If you're looking at prices, you're not really saving any money getting the E63 because they are so rare, the final year ones, and we don't have a new one. So you might be spending very similar money, and maybe you'd want to get a brand new car with the factory warranty, get to order it from the factory the way you want it if you're getting the M5. Or would you go for the RS6? Or would you go for a Panamera Sport Turismo? There's a good amount of options if you're willing to spend $150,000 on your daily driver super German sedan. Hope you guys enjoyed this comparison video. Comment below which one you would take. Thanks for watching.